Hello and welcome to my channel and happy All Hallows Eve. Well, we actually celebrated, like most people, you celebrate Halloween. Of course, people try to celebrate on the day of Halloween, but don't most people celebrate like the Friday and Saturday before or around Halloween? So we celebrated yesterday. Today is just like hanging around the house. Anyway, so how did we celebrate? Me and my friend, we went to see the movie Dune. Me and my friend Rosie. So we went to see the movie Dune. Let me take my head off, my hood off to do a little, take my whole head off. That's some Halloween shit right there. But got my little hair straightened. I was shook by how long it is. Don't get used to the long. I'm probably gonna have it trimmed because my ends are horrible because the guy was, I was ready to get out of there. That's not what we're talking about. I'm assuming that mostly just subbies are watching this. That's why I'm like, la, 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 la. Anyway, so what did we think of Dune? We went to see it and it was good. This is my overall thoughts, no spoilers, right here. It was good. It was a little long. It was a little long, like it was really good and it had a lot of important moments, but then it also had slow moments. But the slow moments didn't, to me, overpower how good the movie was. Well, anyway, I didn't explain my costume. Well, my costume is, my friend, you know how to like make a, you know how to make like a really quick costume, people just put on cat ears or animal ears? I was gonna do that. I was just gonna dress in all black with cat ears. But then it was like, my friend was dressed as Star from Teen Titans. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to dress as, I don't know what I'm dressed as. I just wanted to wear a cape. And I'm like, you know what? Ears trump the cape. I mean, the cape trumps ears. The cape trumps ears as in like easy, no thought, no plan costume. Like just throw on a cape. I really got into wearing it like as the night went on. When I was coming home and it was chilly and I was like holding it around me, I was like, ooh. And I had my little, I was getting out of my car in front of my apartment complex and I put my like little hood on and stuff. You just get into it. You get into wearing it. You're like, well, why don't we wear capes anymore? I have a cape coat. Like it's a little pointy. But I like it like falling down a little bit. But you know, what's her name? Timothée Chalamet's mom in the movie wore a beautiful all black ensemble with the cape. This is gonna be very chatty because I'm just assuming that it's just subbies. Hello subbies, how are you? Happy Halloween. I'm assuming that it's like 90% subbies here. So let's talk about Dune. Dune was fun. It was fine. I mean, it was an evening, you know. It was 2.5 hours long. Like I said, there were some long parts. Timothée Chalamet is so little. Oh my God, my friend is literally, she's literally texting me and saying we didn't take any pictures yesterday. You see that? We didn't take any pictures yesterday. That is so funny. And because my iPad is connected, it came down on my iPad too. Anyway, so let me turn this because it's gonna go off again. Anyway, blah blah blah. Was it good? It was good. It was fine. It was fine. It was good. It was between good and fair for me. Like it was more towards good. It wasn't like great. Like the cinematography and the way it looked was great, but I would say that there was a lot of like flaws and issues, like from a practical standpoint for me. Like, so you have this whole great cast, and this is a spoiler, a lot of them won't be returning for the second movie, and then you have certain cast members like Zendaya were only in the movie for less than 10 minutes. I just read an article where she was in the movie for like 7 minutes. I don't want to spoil the whole movie. But like, there's people die, like half the cast dies. I don't... Is that spoiling it? I think that is a spoiler. I didn't know that going in. I didn't read the books. There's a lot of booktube people going like, is it worth it? Should you read the book? La la la. I don't know. I have some issues. I have a couple of issues. There's a certain like conceits of the plot. There's certain conceits of the like world building that I just have trouble with. One of the things I have trouble with is the shield, the body shield. And I'm like, I'm trying not to talk about stuff too much because I feel like maybe I should read the book because there may be more explanation, but some things work better in books than it does visually seeing it. So the idea that you can't hit someone hard and get through the shield, but you can get close and cut them. You know, like I felt like that was kind of wonky, and I felt like it's one thing to read something like that. It's another thing for human beings to actually try to do that and execute it in real life. I think that if there were real shields, we would learn how to execute that in real life. But since they're not real shields and they were having to pretend, and it's like, okay, was that slice a little bit faster than that slice? How fast does the slicing have to be to slice through the shield? And then there's like this little device that they can do, and they send it, and it goes and it globs onto the shield, and it weasels its way through the shield and stabs you. And I'm like, so what's the fucking point? Like, that's what's the fucking point? The point was that they didn't want guns. They didn't want guns for some reason. Oh, my hood's sliding off. They didn't want guns or something in the story. It's not a flyaway. I have feathers and bejewels on my headband. But I don't know. I don't fucking know. That's I have to look at I know that there's going to be like a lot of Dune people like, you need to read the book. You have to read the book to get it. There's another thing I don't get. Is that this story is supposed to be kind of like an analogy, kind of like a very interesting sci-fi analogy for real life, real world colonialization and exploitation of native peoples and native resources in different countries. Right. Got it. But then like there's the different houses, and like the emperor like gives the Atreides Arrakis, but then he like sends people to go kill him because he's afraid of them, blah blah blah. And like people were acting like, this is my problem with Dune. It wasn't the actual movie that I had a problem with. I have a problem with how people speak about Dune sometimes. And I think that the book is probably really excellently well written. And it's like this big, like, seminal piece of science fiction. I think it's more towards fantasy because there's literally magic in it. But anyway, to me, like, anybody with mind powers, you're in fantasy. That's a fantasy novel. Like, please stop. Anyway, so I just don't like the people talk about it like, oh, well, audiences get it. Well, audiences understand. And it's like, I get the plot. Like, the plot, even if I was coming at the plot like a real big idiot, like, let's say I was a real big dum-dum, I was coming at the plot and I was like, watching the movie, my basic instinct of the plot would be like, oh, the big blob man is evil, and he killed all of Paul's family, and now Paul has to hide with the sand people. Like, it's not that hard to understand. So I don't know why people have kind of talked this up a little bit too high, and I think that Denis did not put a lot of the smarty pants stuff from the novel into this movie, because I know that like some of it is like the philosophy on like fear is the mind killer. They didn't really use that a lot. They just had like the mom kind of, they use it like a mantra as like a calming a meditative thing when they were in times of trouble. We don't get like, I just wish in the beginning we would have gotten more like, you know, when like the heir or the prince is getting their training and their private lessons, and you see them having a dynamic with their like coaches and instructors. I wish we would have gotten more of that. And then I wish that we would have seen Jason Momoa used to be like Timothée Chalamet's instructor, so Paul's instructor. So I think that they should have done more with him. And this is just talking in a practical standpoint. Of course, I really like Jason Momoa, but I think that they, just from a practical standpoint, I think that they should have had him doing more with Timothy. And then, this is a spoiler, he dies in the movie, And then they should not have had him die. They should have carried him into the next movie. And then they could have killed him in the second one. You know what I mean? It would have been more impactful. We get introduced to all of these characters so fucking fast. The cast is gigantic at the beginning of the film. And then, like, half of the people die. So it's like, I'm just worried on, like, a practical standpoint. Like, are people going to want to go see this? Because they're going to be like, well, who's in it? What is it about? What was the character? What happened again? You know, like, I feel like, especially if it's coming out 2 years from now, it's on HBO if people want to rewatch it, but it's so long. People won't want to rewatch it. I don't necessarily want to rewatch it right now. Like, I'm trying to rewatch it. Maybe I will if I end up, like, reading the book. Maybe I'll rewatch it after reading. That's a whole project. I'm not even going to promise y'all that. What else was I thinking about this story? Let's talk about the goddamn worm. Let's talk about the fucking worm. Okay? I have a problem with the worm. It's just too large for how barren the planet is. It's just too large. It's... What the fuck is it eating, babe? What is it eating? So you're telling me that the worm does not eat rocks. So when people go on rocks, they're safe. And then when people are in the big metal machines, it will swallow the whole machine whole. What nutrients is it gaining out of a big metal sand harvester? And then I have like so many like little tiny practical things about the movie that bother me. Another thing that that's like the practical thing that bothers me. It's like, okay, suspension of disbelief. But I'm just like, okay, it's not just the big worm, but there's allegedly millions of people, well, they can grow their own plants and stuff. I'm like, but how are they growing their own plants? So there's water underground? I'm just gonna move. There's water. Maybe I have to read the book. The next thing I have to say is, the last thing I'm going to leave off on is my issue with them and these moisture recycling outfits. It's like, why? Because when we are living in a universe where there's so much technology, we're living in a universe where we have space travel and space magic, and yet we are sitting here recycling our piss and sweat. I'm just trying to figure it out, honey. I just want to know what's going on. Why is that happening? Why? Yeah, maybe I do have to read the book to understand, but if you saw Dune, tell me what you think. I think that the movie is okay. I think it's interesting, and I'm interested in it, and I'm a fan of Timothy, like I said in the beginning, so I want to see it, but